My name's TJ, and I'll be joined by Paul Cheon here in the booth. We've got Lucas Pastorinni facing off against Andrew Tolson, mono red, against something a little bit unusual, indomitable creativity here on the battlefield. Tell me a little bit about this card or this deck, Paul. Indomitable creativity, the triple red X card.
Well, I feel like this is kind of a deck that's not necessarily on a lot of people's radars, but I think the way this deck mostly functions is as a blue-red control deck with a little bit of extra spice there with the indomitable creativity. He's actually playing a card that isn't very popular. We have the indomitable creativity, but it also combos very well with spell swindle, which I've also seen him play. So basically what he's trying to do is set up a board state where he does, get the spell swindle, a large spell, and follow that up with an indomitable creativity, then just kind of litter the board with a bunch of different permanents.
And we're going to see a Braid take down this Scavenger, but from Andrew Tolson, also, I believe, running some number of Hornswoggle, the 3 mana, which yeah.
Anybody playing Hornswoggle is a man after my own heart. Yeah.
So just to pass back to Lucas, there's the indomitable creativity. Red, 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 and X. Destroy X target artifacts and or creatures, and for each one of these, you're going to reveal cards from the top until you can replace them with another artifact or a creature. There's some big ones to replace them with.
Yeah, you're looking at cards like Torrential Gearhulk, and I believe I even saw the Locust God in the blue-red deck. So, again, it's kind of like trying to do the rampy thing. Playing cards like Hornswoggle does allow you to kind of ramp up to play both the Indomitable Creativity and also the Spell Swindle.
Mm-hmm. And using these treasure tokens is actually really key for a lot of this because they are not actually the artifacts, that are the cards that you can draw into with a card like Indomitable Creativity.
Right. The only thing he's actually able to hit when he casts the Indomitable Creativity are those giant heavy hitters. You have the Torrential Gearhulk, you have the Locust God, and you even have a Combustible Gearhulk as well.
And we've got the Crasher coming on in alongside the Scavenger. This is actually a hit for 6, so Lucas is starting to put the pressure on.
Yeah.
Time is of the essence, and Andrew, no response as of yet, though we might see one here with the attack step.
Removal spell? No. Okay, so this is a lot of pressure. I mean, Lucas did miss that land drop, but he does have that resilient threat in the Scrap Heap Scrounger. Even if Andrew does have something like a removal spell, he can of course always get that Scrounger back. But Andrew does need to follow up this attack, with a way to maybe clear out the board to just try to stabilize. Yeah,
with these 2 creatures attacking in, the clock is running out, and Andrew doesn't even have any of these artifacts yet, so it's not even time to start looking at this primary game plan of trying to land these giant creatures. Right now it's just assembling them. Though the 5 mana, that is the cost of Spell Swindle. We might get to see it happen here in round 12.
We're getting close. A Spell Swindle deck in round 12 of the Standard Grand Prix.
9 and 2.
Wow. Here we go, 3 mana.
It's the Crasher. Let's see if we can run it back or if Andrew's going to have something to say about it.
Is it Swindle time?
Oh, it's Swindle
it's
time.
Swindle time.
Oh, my goodness. So this is reminiscent of a card from the past. But this time, Andrew's definitely making sure that he can make the most out of it. That 5 mana, and we're going to get back 3 of these treasures.
Yeah.
Accelerates the mana base, and it's also setting up for that big card.
There's a lot of room to kind of make some ridiculous expensive counterspells, because part of the cost of playing an expensive counterspell is it's pretty easy for opponents to play around it. But when you play into it, you can have, draw a ton of cards or make a bunch of treasure because, look, traditionally this is not a really good card against a mono red deck.
Yeah, and we're going to remove a non-comp Crasher. We're going to make ourselves another treasure, and we're looking pretty good. 5 mana right now.
Limited. I can't even say limited powerhouse. Limited okay card. Depths of Desire here.
Yep, another one in hand, I think.
Okay, well, but look, it's buying him a lot of time here. He does have... that was a huge turn. He was able to counter a card and also bounce a creature, and now he's got 5 mana up along with the treasure. If he has something like a Torrential Gearhulk, it could really swing the game.
That's true. Keeping an eye on that treasure, it is a one-time resource, but it can have a huge impact on what you're able to do. So we do have the Scavenger coming in.
Oh, man, and playing a Spell Swindle off a Torrential Gearhulk? Whew. Oh, man, that is exciting.
So we're going to return this one to the hand. We get ourselves another treasure, and Lucas's pressure is gone. Yeah. The board's empty. Andrew's got time.
Yeah. And the thing is, he is missing those land drops. He really needed to find some cheap creatures to play. And is he discarding a...
That's a Hazoret.
Hazoret?
Do we have multiple in hand, maybe?
No, well, the thing is, he's been missing land drops, so he just has a full grip. and he wants to play around counter magic, so he's looking to put the Scrap Heap Scrounger in his graveyard onto the battlefield.
So, lots of mana here available. Lucas trying to make something happen. We're going to bring back the Scavenger, or the Scrap Heap Scrounger, and it's going to be a shock that comes down as well. It's going to put a little bit of pressure on Andrew, but what can we do with it?
Yeah, Andrew, has those treasures on the battlefield. Really wants to actually find that indomitable creativity, because if he does, he's very, very likely to win here.
2 treasures still available as long as they get to last, though. I wonder if there is any room for a card like a Braid to start playing an element, because indomitable creativity, does it actually target the ones that you're going to be sacrificing?
I believe that it does. If Lucas has access to, let's take a look here. Destroy X target artifacts and or creatures. So for each permanent destroyed this way, so Lucas can actually look to kind of fizzle off one of the creativities, but there are 2 treasures on the battlefield, so no matter what, Andrew will, given 1 Braid, will still be able to put 1 permanent onto the battlefield.
Yep, and it's going to be another Scrap Heap Scrounger joining the battlefield. Lucas piecing together a game plan. Andrew's down to 6 at this point, and I don't think we've seen a whole lot yet from Andrew. Never mind, we've got a Spell Swindle taking it away. Another 2 treasures coming down to the battlefield.
Andrew really needs to find a win condition here. He needs to find one of his big creatures or a card like the Indomitable Creativity. Can he get there? Uh-oh. What is...
Are you aware of the Elder Dinosaurs?
Yes, and this looks like it's Nezahal Primal Tide.
Oh, yeah.
This
it's not going to get countered.
The kind of the control mirror breaker here, but it looks like this is a one of fun of in Andrew Tolson's list here. And look, I mean, the creature is gigantic. It will be able to keep one of the Scroungers here at bay.
Let's see, take a look. I don't think there's any main deck answer to this available for Lucas.
Really, no disintegrations.
No.
Okay, all right. Yeah, so Lucas is actually just mostly a mono-red deck. You see the Scrap Heap Scrounger to go with the Dragon Skull Summit, but, Scrap Heap Scrounger is just a very efficient beater, even at 2 mana.
Yep.
And you just get to play Dragon Skull Summits and just kind of have free activations to get the card back. So he is not actually leaning heavily on black.
We do have... Oh, now look at this, though. We've got a Crasher that could come down. That Crasher would be able to eliminate it from the blocking.
Oh, no, he does have it.
Where's that one floating around?
Oh, okay. Don't actually see it on the deck list here, but...
Must have missed it in my first sweep. So the Disintegration is going to take that down. That does mean that it offers a burn spell here towards Andrew. Lucas is looking pretty powerful here.
Yeah.
So it's going to be the attack in. Have we got an answer from Andrew?
Nope.
Nope. That's going to be game 1. Lucas is going to come ahead. Unlicensed Disintegration, eliminating.
Lucas is like, what were you doing with all these treasures? I want to know. I want to know.
Spell swindling me. We didn't even get to see the Hornswoggle.
We didn't. And Andrew actually, that game, Lucas had kind of a slower draw. Andrew did have the swindle. He did have some treasures. He really just needed to find that Indomitable Creativity, but unfortunately was not able to get there.
Well, there's always another opportunity for him to get creative once he enters into the sideboard realm. Is there anything that's standing out to you?
Well, it's really weird, right? So I haven't really seen this deck in action too often, but a card like Spell Swindle is generally really, really bad against a very, very low to the ground aggressive deck. So I imagine he might look to sideboard some of that out. He does have other ways to interact that does produce treasure, cards like Depths of Desire. But I imagine, if you look at his sideboard, he's probably going to look to bring in a lot of his cheap removal. He's got a couple of Chandras. He's got a couple of Braids. He's got a Chandra's Defeat and a couple of copies of Fiery Cannonade, which I can see him actually bringing out of the sideboard here. But no extra crazy, weird card that he would bring in this matchup. He does.
Sure.
He does have a couple of mechanized productions, but I don't know if that one comes in. But here we go. This is the deck list here. 3 copies of the Creativity.
Search for his contest, struggled to survive. Combustible Gear Hulk as one of the things to hit. Torrential Gear Hulks. Even actually a copy of the Locust God.
Yeah. Well, he's got a lot of that threat diversity. One of the main things is to make sure that you don't play multiple legends in your deck, because with a card like Indomitable Creativity, you don't know what you're going to hit. So if you hit 2 copies of the Locust God, you're just going to lose one. So I think, he was just kind of doing a pass of all the great large blue and red cards in the format and just kind of slapped them all together here.
See what we can do. Also actually has a couple of main deck Sweltering Suns, which we didn't get to see in that game 1, but are going to be another tool in that one. It's able to also just continually dig towards that combo from the cycling ability.
Yeah, and a part of the reason why I think Andrew has had so much success up to now is that, looking at this deck, I feel like this deck does try to prey on kind of some of the more mid-range decks in the format. Decks like kind of the Sultai Constrictor deck, because it's a little bit on the slower end. It doesn't have the 1-mana removal. It's playing Spell Swindle. But, you play this against kind of like a black-green base deck. At least game one, it seems like you're a pretty big favor here.
Yeah, and of course on the mono red side, a little bit outside of that one, but we do have your general setup here. The Black Splash is really just for some of those unlicensed Disintegration. It's got some number of those Scrap Heap Scrounger, but also that Cut to Ribbons might end up being a factor.
Yeah, just a nice, efficient removal spell, and in the late game just gives you a little bit of extra reach. Not that this deck necessarily needs it with, of course, the 4 copies of Hazard the Fervent in the main. It also has the Scrap Heap Scrounger. And, again, you look at this deck, mostly mono-red, but it's not a huge cost to just kind of put a few swamps into your deck. And you're seeing a lot of mono-red decks have the ability to kind of be a little more flexible now because, you don't necessarily need to play Sunscorched Desert because you don't have access to, a card like Raminap Ruins to play into your deck anymore. So now you can add a second color. Should I play black? Should I play a different color to try to kind of mix things up?
And one other thing that I'm a little bit curious about is just how many of these cards are able to work with parts of this mana base like the Ether Hub just by being those colorless costs? Because there's quite a few of them as opposed to a lot of those, generally you think of a red deck, you think very high in that exact red cost.
Right. Yeah, so oftentimes when you've seen kind of red decks in the past, you have a lot of cards that are like, red or whatever. And when you have cards like that are so mana intensive, cards like Ether Hub is not kind of what you really want. But if you look at this deck, you don't have a lot of cards like that. We actually have a lot of, we have 9 artifact creatures in this deck as well. And it's also just kind of a concession, right? You need to just make sure you can play some of your black effects, so you need that black mana. And currently in Standard, if you're an aggressive deck, Dragon Skull Summit is really the only 2-color land that you have access to that you want to play. Because you can play Canyon Slough, but you don't really want to play a tap land in your aggressive deck.
One thing to keep in mind is that stepping into the mentality of Lucas here, he just saw Andrew Tolson firing off Spell Swindle. What is your thought? How do you go about sideboarding or forming a game plan against something that appears to be completely out of left field?
Well, at the end of the day, if you still just kind of look at what Andrew was trying to do, at least in that first game, he's kind of still just a blue-red control deck. And that's exactly what you want to play against oftentimes when you are the mono-red player. Lucas likely going to be boarding out those Cut to Ribbons and just bringing in like some more kind of sticky threats, cards like Chandra, Torch of Defiance, and maybe even Glorybringer, just because it's able to get in a lot of damage while trying to force the issue out of Andrew.
It's Beaumont Courier coming in to kick things off for Lucas. Andrew following up with a 2-mana play. Looks like a Search for Azcanta to me. Very powerful card, going to help set up those draws.
Yeah. Search for Azcanta, excellent card, but against a hyper-aggressive deck, still kind of a little bit on the slower end.
Doesn't block.
Yeah.
2 mana here for Lucas. Let's see what we can follow it up with. That is an Earthshaker Kendra. It is these hasty threats. Doesn't even actually need that triggered ability on it just yet.
Yeah.
But the damage is coming in, and it's coming in fast. Andrew's taking a pretty big hit.
Yeah, ideal start from Lucas. You got the 1-drop into the haste creature. And Earthshaker Kendra also just... You would think, well, this is a card that you just kind of want against the aggressive decks, right? You get kind of pesky blockers out of the way, but it's got that unearth. Sorry.
So we have got Andrew's turn happening here.
Eternalize, sorry.
Yep, and it looks like it's going to be a copy of the Locust God going to the graveyard here from Andrew, setting himself up towards transforming that Search for Azcanta, also lining up an Ether Hub to really start accumulating some of that energy. There is also the Glimmer of Genius, but not a whole lot of resources to really empty that into in this deck.
Yeah, and a pass out of Andrew here.
Drawn in, we see in a Braid. We also do have a couple more lands. Looks like it might be just more of the same here from Lucas. That Beaumont Courier starting to stack up pretty nicely. It's going to be refilling that hand really well. And the Earthshaker Kendra under no pressure just yet. I think Andrew's holding up a Opt.
Yeah, currently, Lucas doesn't really have to necessarily add more to the board either. He can if he wants, but Andrew could have a sweeper like Sweltering Suns.
Which actually, looking at that card behind Opt, we might be in the shape for that one next turn. Fiery Cannonade comes down. 2 sweepers in hand. The Fiery Cannonade comes down. This one's an instant. 2 damage to each non-pirate
I bet Lucas was kind of wishing that he had a Fanatical Firebrand on the battlefield instead of that Bomad Courier.
I mean, that one had the ability to join its friends anyway, I suppose. But it is going to be back into Andrew's turn now, and the tempo is gone from Lucas.
Yeah.
That turn 1, that turn 2, nothing now after just a fantastic turn 3 play. So Andrew heading into his, taking a look at this search for his content, trying to sculpt a hand. And I think that's an Essence Scatter.
Yeah.
So if you're Andrew, I imagine you're feeling pretty confident, though no 4th land coming down.
Yeah, so this was actually kind of interesting. I guess he really wants the Essence Scatter to maybe try to stop a threat that comes onto the battlefield this turn, but missing out on a land drop is huge. I might have even considered going for the Opt main phase just to try to hit that land, because you can still just
Use your energy.
You can still use the energy to cast your Essence Scatter regardless.
Yeah, and setting that one up, it is going to be a little bit dangerous. Was able to counter that spell.
It must be another interactive spell if he's thinking so long, and it is. All right, but yeah, this game is just working out perfectly for Andrew here. That turn 3 Fiery Cannonade was just... Andrew's probably going to be happy enough just getting the Bomad Courier into Kendra, but Lucas just played the perfect card. It's like, you know what, 3 for 1? All right, I guess I'll take this one.
I'll manage.
Yeah.
So we have got another one of these Earthshaker Kendras joining the battlefield. We are up to that 5 mana, so we're getting close to the realm of also just starting to bring back these previous ones, and they're going to be 4/4s on the coming back. And here's the opt from Andrew.
So Andrew Tolson does have access, does have a disallow, I believe, in his hand, and he might want to consider using that. It looks like he's just going for the depths instead. No. The reason why, because, countering a creature there, especially something like an Earthshaker Kendra, doesn't seem too strong, but it would put a 6 card into Andrew Tolson's graveyard. And of course, he's got that Search for Azcanta on the battlefield, meaning that he could just bin whatever card is on top of his library, put 7 cards in his graveyard, and flip that Search for Azcanta for a mana source.
So Depths of Desire, taking it down, and then we've just got a second main. Earthshaker Kendra, not really where you want it to be. It's not going to be attacking this turn. And we're off to Andrew. The Search for Azcanta continuing to just dig through this library.
Yeah, and Andrew's done a good job of keeping Lucas's threats at bay, but Lucas is also sitting at 5 mana. If Andrew still just finds ways to deal with this Kendra, Lucas has lots of good draws. If he finds a 6th land, he can just start eternalizing the Earthshaker Kendras, or he can just continue to put pressure onto the battlefield. So this is a pretty reasonable spot. It's one of those spots where it's like, if I draw a spell, well, that's good. Mm-hmm. But if I draw a land, well, I can still just put on a lot of pressure.
Yeah, one tricky thing that I'm spotting for Andrew is that he's only really got the 1 mountain, and he's got an Ether Hub that gets a 1-shot to produce mana. He's trying to cast cards like Sweltering Suns and Indomitable Creativity.
Yeah, that is true.
So it's the Earthshaker Kendra coming down, it's the Bomad Courier getting in, and Andrew continuing to use this Search for Azcanta to see what he can come up with.
So Andrew...
Because he's got the treasure available to him. That will at least help him cast, say, the Sweltering Suns.
Right.
But there's
But not flipping that search. He just keeps putting cards in hand, putting cards into his hand, and not playing things. So it's really curious what cards he's keeping on top here. So you kind of just want to get that search going. It's like, it's got to be really, really high-impact, powerful card for me to actually just choose to not flip my Search for Azcanta.
Especially in a deck that doesn't seem like it has a whole lot of graveyard interaction.
Right.
To even using that ability to put them in the bin doesn't have the same payoff in, some other, like a God Pharaoh deck.
Exactly.
Something to that effect. Yeah. So taking a look at this, you were talking a little bit about some of the decks that, or we've been talking about some of the decks that have been surprising us over the course of this weekend. Is there any of those standard decks? We've seen the red deck here. We're seeing something a little bit more on the other end of the spectrum in this Indomitable Creativity. How about that more in the realm of not what you expected, but not too surprised to see it at the top tables? Has there been anything really floating around that is kind of the breakout deck for you this weekend?
Well, just one thing that I noticed was just kind of the diversity of the format. I've seen just a lot of different strategies at the top tables, which is really nice to see, actually. And
all right, we're going to jump down to table B here as situation is resolved down at the main table. So we have got Davoudi against Shuhei Nakamura, and we have got a 2-mana play here, and we're going to be kicking into it. We've got 2 mana, and it is going to be a Glint Sleeve Siphoner. This is game 3 with a blue-black Scarab God up against that white-blue God Pharaoh's Gift, and it's a Champion of Wits coming down.
Yeah, and Shuhei looks like he's, there's a couple of takes you can kind of go with playing a blue-black deck. You can either go kind of the more controlling blue-black control shell with just Scarab God and Torrential Gearhulk as a win condition, but it looks like Shuhei is deciding to go for the slightly more mid-range version with cards like the Glintsleeve Siphoner and the Minister as well, or sorry, the Champion of Wits.
Yeah, and we saw 2 of those Champion of Wits go to the graveyard off of that one. The Glintsleeve Siphoner is starting to activate 2 energy available.
And if you look here, Shuhei just tapped out turn 3 to play that champion, and Manny has a God Pharaoh's Gift in his graveyard. So if he has a Refurbish in hand, he can get that God Pharaoh's Gift onto the battlefield.
And just to provide a quick update about that table A, currently there's an investigation about the unlicensed disintegration that we saw on the game 1. And so there's an investigation into that one right now, so we're jumping over to this table B just to keep the flow going.
So it looks like he doesn't have that Refurbish, as he would have of course cast it prior to the combat step.
Ixalan's Binding comes down, takes away the Glintsleeve Siphoner, and we were left with just 2 champions trying to come out on top.
Ixalan's Binding is just one of those cards. It can just be so frustrating because oftentimes when you look at the card, you're just like, oh, whatever. It's just going to get. What's the likelihood I draw 2 copies of it? And the moment like they take one of your creatures, you just draw. You're definitely just like locked in to draw another Glintsleeve Siphoner. You're like, really?
Every
is this really what's happening? Just every time.
Especially against some of the decks like that blue-black Scarab God. Sometimes their creature, they're less diverse in the creature realm.
Yeah, it's just like, putting an Ixalan's Binding on like a Torrential Gearhulk, it's like, oh, no, I just can't win anymore. Yeah.
So the 4 mana available for this white blue God Pharaoh's Gift. It's 3 mana here. It's another Champion of Wit still trying to dig to something to happen. There is the God Pharaoh's Gift in the graveyard. Definitely worth keeping an eye on, but we're not seeing that 4 mana Refurbish just yet.
Right.
So it's a battle of the champions.
And Shuhei, he did have an Argwell's Bloodfast in hand that he could have played, but it looks like he wanted to keep the mana up to cast Commit to Memory.
Oh, okay. So we're just going to get back our Glintsleeve Siphoner. This is going to help Shuhei to just keep churning through this deck. 4 energy currently available. It costs 2 at the beginning of the turn to keep drawing those extra cards.
And the reason why Shuhei decided to play it in response to the champion there is Manny did not have 2 lands untapped because the champion was on the stack. That allows him to actually play around a potential negate that Manny could have had in his hand.
If, say, drawing a land just much like
this. Right. If Manny, for example, had a land on the battlefield prior to the Champion of Wits, maybe Shuhei would have looked to wait. But he saw an opportunity there. Manny played tap 3 mana, played the champion. Was like, okay, well, this is my window. This is my opportunity to get my Glintsleeve Siphoner back and draw additional cards to try to find a way to deal with a potential top-decked Refurbish.
Mm-hmm. Angel of Sanctions?
Yep.
That's a very cool card.
It's a nice card that, it's going to do a lot of work, but I think Shuhei does probably have some removal in his hand.
I think there's actually a Doomfall and possibly a Vraska's Contempt as well. So possibly debating which of these 2 removal spells could be worth using or neither at all.
Yeah, and not a great attack option there. Shuhei doesn't really want those Champion of Wits that Manny has on the battlefield to go into the graveyard, as you can eternalize them for a lot more cards.
And there's the Ixalan's Binding back at it. Probably going to be taking down that Glintsleeve Siphoner once more.
Yeah, makes a lot of sense.
So there it goes, and we have got these champions coming on in. Shuhei's going to take a hit, and we're going to keep on moving forward into Shuhei's turn by the look of it.
So it looks like interesting that Shuhei just... I don't know if he has any other ways to interact, but he could have just gone for the Vraska's Contempt and save a few extra points of damage here because it's unlikely that Manny has another cheap permanent or creature to play. But waiting until he gets basically perfect information here before firing off the Vraska's Contempt.
And another swing coming in from Shuhei's side of the battlefield. Looks to be a 2 minute... Oh, it's time for the Bloodfast to come down.
All right, time to draw some cards. Or not. We got a negate there.
I guess he did a good job of reading the negate earlier, but it came back to bite him. No Argwell's Bloodfast for Shuhei. And
that was his main way to actually kind of get ahead on cards here.
It's going to be the Doomfall to eliminate that one. It is Exile, so it's not going to find its way to the graveyard, so it's not going to be making a return. And it's back to Manny.
Yeah, and Manny still does have that Angel of Sanctions in his graveyard, which he could maybe use.
Chart of course.
He has the window here. If he finds a Refurbish, he can get that God Pharaoh's Gift back.
Shuhei's tapped out, so if there is a time, this is it.
Right. Oh, discards. Oh, his hand must be loaded if he's discarding Angel of Invention here. Is it Refurbish time?
Doesn't look like it just yet. It's another 2-mana spell.
Huh.
Yeah. Not a whole lot of action just yet. Still continuing
Looks
to
like
try and dig through.
he's still just digging. He really wants to find that Refurbish. And he's also just close to hard casting the God Pharaoh's Gift. He's got 6 lands on the battlefield. Still digging, and he does have multiple copies of Angel of Sanctions in his graveyard.
Looks like we're going to get rid of another negate, another cast out, and it's back to Shuhei, just the Champion of Wits. 6 mana available on this turn, but not a whole lot of pressure on the board. It's 14-15 for these players, and they've both really got time.
Yeah, Manny's looking really good here. Shuhei just all he's got is that champion. The Champion of Wits on the battlefield.
Mm-hmm.
And okay,
looks like it's going to be memory.
Yeah. Well, Manny had a lot of action in his graveyard. He had the God Pharaoh's get hit. He had multiple copies of the Angel of Sanctions. Now we're restarting the game.
Mm-hmm. And just a quick update down at the other side. It looks like there was a game loss that they will be going to Game 3. And looks like it will be Lucas who has the play draw option.
Wow. So given that Shuhei did have the commit to memory in his graveyard, Manny might have wanted to consider just perhaps casting the Angel of Invention. I don't know if he necessarily had the mana to, but maybe look to be a little more proactive, or maybe even just use the Angel of Sanctions in his graveyard and just play that instead. Take
out the Champion of Wits and just start getting anything on the board,
right,
so that it's on Shuhei,
right,
to start taking the initiative.
At the same time, Shuhei is more or less tapped out here, and Manny does get the first crack at the fresh 7 cards, so he might still just be able to kind of piece it all together here on the following turn. Oh, but Shuhei finds a duress.
And we see Search for Azcanta, Chart a Course, and is that a strategic planning?
That is. This is a fantastic hand for Manny. Shuhei has a few options here, but no matter what, Manny is going to basically play one of his 5-mana creatures along with one of his blue cantrip effects. I think strategic planning does look at the most cards, which does help you kind of find cards like potentially Refurbish plus God Pharaoh's Gift. So I think, yeah, looks like Shuhei identified that is the most dangerous card in Manny's hand. The Search for Azcanta, I know we're looking at turn 7 or 8 here, but of course Shuhei did cast Memory, so no cards in graveyard right now. So it's going to be a little bit before the Search for Azcanta will flip.
That's true. We do also have those 2 angels in hand at the moment. 6 mana on Manny's side of the battlefield as well. How do you feel about that decision? Do you start using this Chart a Course and that Search for Azcanta? Are you digging to kind of do that combo, or do you want to start applying that pressure just by getting those creatures on the field?
I think, given that Manny will have access to 7 mana, I think I probably just start off with the Chart a Course and just see where I end up. Mm-hmm. But Manny alternatively could just play one of his 5-mana threats and a Search for Azcanta. So I think both are completely defensible options. And it looks like he's going for the Search here.
So making a couple of those servos, those are actually 2/2s because the Anthem from that Angel of Invention, it is a 2/1 on its own. That card is a powerhouse, of course, when it comes in off of the God Pharaoh's Gift. It becomes that 4/4. You can put the 2 counters on it, and then it's a 6/6 that's coming in with haste and that vigilance.
Yeah, you can either have a 6/6 flying lifelinker with haste or a 4/4 flying lifelinker with haste that also makes 2 servos.
Decisions.
Yeah.
It's Gonti coming down for Shuhei. Let's take a look at the top 4 and see if there's anything of Manny's that Shuhei wants for himself.
I'm actually shocked that these players were able to go through 2 games in 20 minutes, given just how grindy these games look.
And it is going to be a Vraska's Contempt to take down the 1. We're left with just a couple of 1/1s now that the Anthem is gone, and we've got this 2/2 jumping in.
Yeah, and Shuhei happily is very happy with actually trading the Champion of Wits there because he does want to eternalize, and it will enter the battlefield as a 4-power creature, allowing you to draw 4 and discard 2.
Still
Did Manny use the Search?
Yes.
Okay, the island.
Yep,
right.
That is correct. So we're taking a look at the top 3. We are going to get to put, I think, a couple of these.
I saw God Pharaoh's Gift.
Did you?
Yeah.
That could be a good sign if a Refurbish is another card in that stack, but I don't think that I saw one. Otherwise, we do have the Angel of Sanctions, though if you do hit the Gonti, now how does that interact with the card that has been exiled?
So when you cast a card when you cast Gonti and take a card, even if the Gonti dies, you can always just cast that card no matter what. And so it's actually just that Gonti is, Shuhei actually has a lot of cards that enter the battlefield and give you some amount of value. So Angel of Sanction is not great because it's like, okay, well, I'm going to exile your Gonti, but then if you kill my Angel, my Gonti comes back and I just get additional cards. I think, the reason why Manny did bring it in is because the Scarab God is just so difficult to deal with. Yeah. It's an answer to the Scarab God, but most of other Shuhei's creatures you don't really want to exile.
So a couple of options here. One thing to note is that there's also the Field of Ruin on the table, which could play a little bit into the decision-making for Manny in how he uses this Search for Azcanta.
Yeah. So the cool thing with Search is even if you do get 7 cards into your graveyard, you have the option of actually flipping the Search for Azcanta. And if there is a Field of Ruin on the battlefield and you don't have multiple copies of Search in hand or in play, then it might just be better just to keep it on the board to use it as kind of a way to kind of sculpt your draws.
Champion of Wits tries to Eternalize, makes its way, but Manny says no, it's disallowed, now it's gone, and we're heading back to Manny's turn. There is no 4/4 on the battlefield.
And there have been so many turns here where Shuhei has just been tapped out. So Manny just really needs to punish Shuhei here, but he just hasn't been able to get a Godfarer's Gift on the board.
The graveyard's full. There's things to do. You just need the cards to do them.
And it looks like Manny's in digging mode, and he did choose to flip that Search for Azcanta. He will likely only get 1 activation here, given that there's a Field of Ruins on the battlefield. And yeah, here we go. Time to look for a Refurbish here.
Let's see what we've got. I think I see a Cast Out, but I don't think I see a Refurbish.
Yeah, Cast Out is the only card I can make out as well.
Seems like we're just in a position where a lot of these, the win conditions of some of these cards. We saw this earlier, actually, with the deck that was trying to go off with New Perspectives. All those win conditions at the bottom of the deck, that seems to be the theme.
Right.
So far for us.
Uncharted Course, still digging here.
Now there is 3 mana left available. We're going to have to discard a card. And it looks like one of those is a land that we're keeping our eye on as the card to discard.
So Manny could have actually chosen to attack with the servo so that he wouldn't have to discard a card with the chart, but I guess he was just looking to get more information to see if he can actually find a card like Refurbish and play that prior to combat.
Yep. And the Field of Ruin is untapping, so it is available, but if Shuhei is going to be using that one, it does restrict some of the other resources that are available, so maybe 8 mana isn't really that truthful as far as, what can you actually do with this?
Yeah, and Shuhei has a ton of action in his hand. We were looking at, looks like a Scarab God, he's got a Siphoner, he's got a Liliana, Death's Majesty. He's got a ton of options, but instead, still a little planning.
You got to be prepared for the future. Is that 3 lands?
That is 3 lands.
Well, I guess it's good to plan ahead for this kind of thing.
Right. And I guess it was decent to play it there. He doesn't have to worry about drawing those lands anymore.
Yep. And you talked about just Shuhei has got a hand full of answers. He's been tapped out a lot of this. Is there any point in this game where he's going to start really considering rolling back on how often he's tapping out and applying that pressure? Or is now the time that he's got to step moving forward? Or what's his thought based on how Manny's been playing this game?
Well, I think Shuhei just on a turn-by-turn basis is just kind of figuring out, I am not in a situation where I am ahead enough where I can represent a counter if I don't have it. So a lot of these turns you've seen where he just kind of taps out and goes for an effect. But now he's whittled Manny's life total down to 8. He might be able to be a little more conservative here and keep some mana up. He does have a Vraska's Contempt in hand along with a Glintslave Siphoner, so that could be a reasonable option. But he might also just look to use a Field of Ruin here on the Azcanta the Sunken Ruin, which he does.
That leaves 4 mana remaining for this turn, which is going to eliminate the Liliana.
Yeah, and part of the reason why Shuhei did go for the strategic planning instead of casting one of his giant cards in hand is Manny did play that Chart of Course, and Shuhei, playing a blue-black deck, he's probably got some counter magic and some hand disruption. That's what he was digging for.
And Liliana actually not eliminated as an option because of the basic that you get off of activating that Field of Ruin, because that does enter the battlefield untapped. Right. So if that's what Shuhei's got planned for himself, then he does still have that option.
Yeah, but the Liliana currently won't actually get a creature back from the graveyard. It can just, I believe, just make a zombie, but he might look to just...
There's a Bloodfast, a Siphoner. There's a lot of options in this hand.
I'm not even going to try to guess what Shuhei is going to do. I'm going to assume that what he does is the correct play here.
Seems like a strong way to go about it. We've got the Glint Sleeve Siphoner joining. Oh, no, that's the Argos Bloodfast.
Okay.
So we're just going to set up making sure that we've got a handful of more gas in the future, and it's Cast Out coming down. We're going to eliminate that one.
And Shuhei's just saying, you know what, I don't have a negate. I'm just going to draw this card here.
Keep your hand full. It's a Servo up against a Gonti.
All right.
8-15.
Will Manny find a way to get a God Pharaoh's Gift onto the battlefield?
It's another Chart Course. No attack this time either.
Oh, he found a Refurbish.
Did he?
He found a Refurbish.
It's time to go.
It is time.
We've got the Angel of Inventions in there. Shuhei's tapped out. There's the Refurbish. We've got gifts.
We got some gifts. It took a long time, but if you look at the God Pharaoh's Gift deck, you just you're playing kind of the pseudo combo engine with Refurbish and God Pharaoh's Gift, but you're also just playing with a bunch of good creatures, right? Angel of Invention, Angel of Sanctions, Champion of Wits. Those are all just good cards you put in your deck. So he's been able to actually just navigate this game where, just plays out a bunch of threats, and eventually I'm going to get this card onto the battlefield that, is going to inevitably win the game.
Yeah, and that lifelink is going to be such an enormous part of this game plan because all the work that Shuhei had in just whittling that down, it's gone. Manny was down to 8. There was a room in there to kind of whittle that in.
Yeah, and Shuhei playing kind of a blue-black deck. Blue-black, generally a color combination, not a lot of answers once the God Pharaoh's Gift is on the battlefield. He did have that one commit to memory, but it's no longer an option here.
No, and we are in Game 3, so the sideboard is something that we've got a little bit of option to, so if there was something floating around in that 15, then there's a chance in that realm.
Yeah, it's just blue-black, not necessarily known for actual artifact destruction, maybe some graveyard interactions, and counter magic is often counter magic and hand disruption is often how you're trying to affect Manny. But Shuhei really just didn't draw a lot of that in this game.
A lot of threats, though, a lot of things that are on the ground, but not a whole lot that's going to be getting in the way of this creature in the air.
Yeah, I think this Angel just might get it done. I mean, Shuhei does have removal, but Manny's kind of flooding out the board, and he does have additional creatures to get back out of his graveyard. So now Shuhei is just under the gun. He really just needs to put as much pressure as he can to try to somehow outrace this God Pharaoh's Gift.
Is there any realm of that one?
Look at that hand.
Another Angel, a Disallow, and a Negate.
Right. And if you noticed, Manny just chose to let the Doomfall resolve here because if he did counter it, that would leave himself vulnerable to a potential big card that Shuhei could play. But now it's like, look, if you take my Disallow, I still have this negate up for any shenanigans that you might have in your hand.
Okay, so making sure that we have that 4 mana available because he can't take both of these cards.
Right, exactly.
Argos Bloodfast underneath a Cast Out, Glint Sleeve Siphoner underneath an Ixalan's Binding, though that is restricting a little bit of what Shuhei's able to do with the one in hand.
Of course, the Ixalan's Binding was kind of off to the side there.
Yeah.
I was like, we were talking earlier about kind of the options that he had. And Glint Sleeve Siphoner, not an option given that Ixalan's Binding.
So the Doomfall, what will it take? Is there just one that you would take to hedge your bets? Looks like it's going to be the Disallow.
Yeah, well, the thing is, Manny has a ton of mana on the battlefield, so I would just take the kind of more versatile counter. So the taking the Disallow makes a lot more sense here because then Shuhei can try to resolve a Scarab God here, for example. But I think currently the more pressing issue is that Angel Invention on the battlefield. So
it's a big 4/4. Shuhei's down to 9, and it's also providing that Anthem to each of these servos.
Right, but Manny does have that negate. So is this another God Pharaoh's Gift?
Oh no,
that is rough.
God Pharaoh's Gift comes down. Shuhei knows about the negate backup for it.
Yeah.
With 6 mana available, do you have 2 counterspells, 2 ways to beat this? I see one. I don't see another.
I don't. I see a Disallow in Shuhei's hand, but Manny does have the negate here. So, and Manny's going to... Oh, no. Okay, there's a Vraska's Contempt, but let's go with the negate.
And that's going to be the handshake. Manny's going to take it. God Pharaoh's Gift, God Pharaoh's Gift. Shuts out Shuhei Nakamura on that blue-black Scarab God deck, and that is going to call this match.
Yeah, that was an epic game. A lot of back and forth. Just kind of really enjoyed actually how both players were playing. Oftentimes when you play against a combo deck, a lot of people kind of play scared. They're like, look, I'm just going to keep my mana up at all times and just try to get you with my little creature. But Shuhei was like, look, I don't have the interaction. I need to put pressure. I don't care if you have it. I'm just going to hope you don't have it and just go tap out and play threats every turn. I think Shuhei played that, exactly how you're supposed to, and Manny just played the waiting game. Very, very patient. Eventually found a Refurbish to get that God Pharaoh's Gift going.
Well, here in round 12, we've got more Magic coming your way right after this. Welcome back to round 12. My name's TJ, joined by the amazing Paul Cheon, getting ready for a time walk match to provide a bit of an update about that situation that we had right before we went to that break. We had a situation in which there was a deck registration error, and after receiving that game loss, he was actually able to move forward and gain the win, get that win in 3. So he will be moving forward. Otherwise, we are going to be getting ready for some time walk magic here, and it is going to be Gerry Thompson on Blue-Black Scarab God up against Michael Hinderaker on, again, Blue-Black Scarab God. So we have got a grind fest coming here as we get into game 2.
So it looks like actually Michael Hinderaker's on...
Oh, it looks like actually we might have a red deck here up against the blue-red God Pharaoh's Gift deck. So this is actually a little bit different, and we're going to see the Scrap Heap Scrounger come down as well as that Warkite Marauder. That's the 2/1 flyer that when it attacks, it can actually nullify one of these creatures.
Yeah. This the blue-red, it's kind of a blue-red God Pharaoh's Gift deck, but it's really focusing a lot on creatures because it's actually looking at Gate to the Afterlife as its main way to find God Pharaoh's Gift instead of kind of like the blue-white versions that's looking to refurbish God Pharaoh's Gift. So it's got cards like Trophy Mage, which help you find the Gate to the Afterlife, and Warkite Marauder is a really awesome card in this deck because it synergizes with 2 other creatures. You have Walking Ballista and also Fanatical Firebrand. So combined with the Warkite Marauder's ability, which is when you attack, target creature becomes a 0/1 with no abilities, you can then use your Walking Ballista and or Fanatical Firebrand to try to just kind of gun down like smaller or bigger creatures rather.
And we've got an Inventor's Apprentice coming down, a Walking Ballista as well as going to take down that Warkite Marauder. Another thing is that it actually does a great job of protecting the Combat Celebrant, which is a pretty fragile 4/1.
Yeah.
So Michael, he has the Walking Ballista. He's got another Warkite Marauder, and it's going to be back. This Inventor's Apprentice is joined by an artifact, so it is going to be on its large state. It's going to be a 2/3.
Yeah, but Michael Hinderaker, looks like he kept a 2-lander and didn't get there on his 3rd land, meanwhile Gerry Thompson curving out nicely here. Just kind of looking at a mono-red deck with, again, that black splash that we saw earlier. But it looks like he actually decided to play the Canyon Slough just kind of for mana consideration, just need to be able to cast your spells.
Yeah, this looks to be kind of in the same realm of deck that we saw John Rolfe on earlier today, and he was actually putting up a great performance with that deck. And so for Michael, another consideration is that he's actually missing the red mana out of this deck, and it's another Walking Ballista coming down. It's got 2 counters, could really attack both aspects of this deck, but he's going to leave him with that Walking Ballista.
Yeah, and this, Michael drew the mountain here, but might be a little too late. Gerry just has amassed a pretty impressive board here, and sitting in his hand, he's got the 4 lands on the battlefield. So that's when you kind of hit that big power spike. You have, of course, cards like Rekindling Phoenix, Hazret the Fervent, just a lot of really, really powerful cards at 4 mana. So, Michael Hinderaker is going to need to find a way to get that God Pharaoh's Gift on the battlefield as quickly as possible.
As a quick note, we do have the incorrect deck names on there. We're unable to change those ones at the moment. But as we were saying before, and just to re-clarify, on the right we've got Gerry Thompson, who is on that black-red aggro deck, a little bit away from the straight mono-red. And on the left side, we have actually got that blue-red God Pharaoh's Gift that we were able to see in those previous rounds.
Yeah. And Gerry actually leaning pretty heavily on kind of the artifact themes. If you notice, there is that Inventor's Apprentice on the battlefield. He's also got the Scrap Heap Scrounger and the full 4 copies of Walking Ballista so that he could actually play with a very powerful land in Spire of Industry.
Yeah, really helps out that splash. So we ended up seeing a little bit of a trade there. We tried putting the Walking Ballista in front of the Scrap Heap Scrounger. Gerry uses his to eliminate that one, and we're left with just the Scrounger, just the Inventor's Apprentice. But on the other side, Michael, he's got that Gate to the Afterlife.
He does.
That's going to be a big card. He does need 6 creature cards in the graveyard to be able to actually activate that for finding the God Pharaoh's Gift. So really losing some of these creatures, losing that Walking Ballista, they are sort of helping him dig towards that eventual gameplay.
Yeah, and Gerry's, I think it's on Gerry right now, and I think he has the option to play a 4-mana creature here, but he's also looking at that Gate to the Afterlife, and he's holding an Abrade, and he's thinking, do I need to keep the mana up for the Abrade, or do I just want to deploy a threat to try to end this game as quickly as possible?
It also depends on what that 3rd card is, I imagine, as to where can he use all of his mana this turn?
Yeah, I see a Rekindling Phoenix and an Abrade. I don't know what the 3rd card is.
That's what I'm seeing as well. Doesn't appear to be a haste threat, though, because he did already move for that. And it is going to be the Recurring Phoenix. He's taking the shot. So Michael heads into his turn. He's got that Gate to the Afterlife. He's got another land. Looks to be a tapped land from the look of it. So that is going to hurt him a little bit. It's a Spirebluff Canal, if I can spot it right. And being the 4th land, that one will enter tapped.
Yeah, that's going to hurt. That's really, really going to hurt. Oh, I see.
So this is a 0 mana Walking Ballista. Spent no mana on it. It enters as that 0/0. It's got none of the +1/+1 counters. Dies immediately. It's in the graveyard. 5 cards in the graveyard.
Yeah.
Gets to draw a card.
It triggers that Gate to the Afterlife, which allows you to draw and discard a card here. So then is he actually able to utilize this Gate to the Afterlife? So he needs, you said he needs 6 creatures in the graveyard.
That's correct. That is correct.
Then he can use the Gate to the Afterlife to search up a God Pharaoh's Gift.
Yeah. Does only cost 2 mana to activate that one, so he could actually use another mana, something like a Fanatical Firebrand.
All right.
Comes down, deals 1 damage to that one. That's the 6 creatures, and I think the 2 mana required.
What a turnaround.
I see 2 Warkite Marauders. I see the Walking Ballista. I think we might be right at that realm that we need, and we're going to get that loot, so it's a draw and it's a discard. And that looks like what it's going to be. From 3 lands, getting that missed land drop, it's time for the God Pharaoh's Gift.
Yeah, he's got to get God Pharaoh's Gift, but this deck doesn't have, as kind of the heavy hitters that you see in the blue-white deck, you don't have a card like Angel would mention. What is he even getting back here?
Yeah, and I think one of their main ones that they would like to is that Combat Celebrant is able to enable so many additional attacks.
Right.
Not in this realm, so it is just going to be this. The Fanatical Firebrand dealt 1 damage to that Recurring Phoenix. Right before dying. The Warkite Marauder made it a 0/1.
And a 0/1 with no abilities. So, no egg on the battlefield. That Rekindling Phoenix will not be coming back.
What a fantastic interaction from this Warkite Marauder combining with that Fanatical Firebrand. That's synergy.
That is synergy. But Gerry does have that Abrade in hand, so he can get that God Pharaoh's Gift off the board and still put pressure with his creature. But that was a huge turn for Michael. I actually thought he might have considered putting the Whirler Virtuoso in his graveyard and then get that back to get the Thopter, but this Warkite Marauder was much better.
Yeah, and it doesn't.
That's why he's sitting over there, the A2 table.
We do have that Whirler. I think that might have been another. We've got a Hazoret in hand. Was the other card a Fanatical Firebrand? I don't think so, actually.
It might be, but the Hazoret not going to be doing a lot here because he still has 3 cards in hand.
Yep, so it looks like it's going to be the Whirler Virtuoso. We're going to get a little bit of energy. Between that and the Ether Hub, really only has enough to make 1 Thopter at the moment, but a flyer is a flyer, and it is a 2/3.
Yeah, and he still has that God Pharaoh's Gift on the battlefield here, but I think prior to combat, Gerry's going to have an effect.
Yep, Abrade takes it down. It's 3 damage to target creature.
Oh, and with the energy trigger on the stack, Gerry Thompson decided to go for the Abrade on the Whirler Virtuoso so that Michael cannot make a Thopter.
So 2 Abrades for Gerry, and Michael is left with only this Warkite Marauder. Now, it is a 4/4. It's still going to be very aggressive, and he can combine this with the Fanatical Firebrand to kill something if he wanted to.
Yeah, so this is... Michael could have been aggressive there if he wanted to, attack with the Warkite Marauder, then use the Firebrand to maybe get the Apprentice off the board, but playing it a little bit conservatively here.
It's interesting how that can work also against some of the gods.
Yeah.
Like that Hazoret, anything else.
A very clever way to deal with the gods.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
Losing all abilities is quite brutal.
Okay, well...
There's the Hazoret.
There is a Hazoret, and Gerry just sending the team. If you want to block your Warkite Marauder and put it in front of my Scrap Heap Scrounger or Adventurer's Apprentice, go ahead.
It's 10 damage coming in.
Yeah, and I imagine the Firebrand's probably going in front of the Hazoret here, and then we're going to see the Warkite Marauder gobble up one of these creatures.
Yeah, hitting the Scrap Heap Scrounger gets pretty difficult because of that one's ability just to come back from that graveyard. There is the Recurring Phoenix. There is that Walking Ballista in there. Yeah. So choosing to go for that Inventor's Apprentice.
It is a bit rough, though, because this does put Michael down to 4, meaning 2 activations from Hazoret is currently lethal.
Oh. And let's see here. Gerry is at 5 mana currently.
He is at 5 mana currently.
He's got the 1 card in hand, but yeah, he's quite close. And that's another Fanatical Firebrand and a Hazoret.
Oh, so he's got the Fanatical Firebrand. He can use the Firebrand along with the Warkite Marauder, that interaction that we just talked about, to get that Hazoret off the board. And then the only thing looking at Michael right now is that Scrap Heap Scrounger, which would only put him down to 1. So this might be the turn where Michael's just like, you know what, I hope you have nothing. I'm going to get that Hazoret off the board, use my Firebrand to turn it into a 0/1 with no ability and to get it off the board, and just hope you have no burn spells, nothing else, and hope it's just a Scrounger.
It's a shot.
Here we go.
It's up to Gerry at this point.
If Gerry just draws nothing,
He's going to cycle a land. He's going to draw another. He's got 2 lands in hand.
Oh, and Gerry's at 9. Michael has a Warkite Marauder with a Hazoret in his hand.
I think Michael's about to take this game and tie it up. This is our game 2, I believe, or this is actually our game 1. I think that record at the top is part of what's also incorrect.
Wow, so what a turnaround.
Game 1 going to Michael with this Hazoret. He'll have the 1 card in hand, but that's enough. That's 9.
That's you at 9? You at 9? Oh, my. That was incredible.
Hazoret getting it done, and we're on to game 2. Now, we did see that update, so I think this might be our game 3.
Okay.
Now, but again, just to clarify, on the right, we do have Gerry Thompson on the black-red aggro deck. On the left, we've got Michael, who's actually on the blue-red God Pharaoh's Gift.
Yeah.
So it's Beaumont Courier and Scrap Heap Scrounger together, but opponents, and it's a Warkite Marauder.
Warkite Marauder did some serious work that game.
Oh, yes. Killed a Hazoret. Killed a recurring Phoenix.
And a Rekindling Phoenix. Yeah, it's completely absurd.
So it's 3 damage from Gerry. That card's not blocking, so you might as well turn it sideways. And it's back to Michael. What an interesting deck.
Right.
This blue-red one is. That Warkite Marauder seems to just be a piece that holds it together in a lot of ways.
Right. It just combos so well with both the Ballista and the Fanatical Firebrand.
Yep.
It's a very, very clever interaction.
The Scrounger's a 0-1 this turn.
Yeah. So does he have a way to get that? Does he want to get a Scrounger off the board? No, it looks like he just wants to put a lot of pressure. This is a nice little curve out of Michael Hinderaker. He's got currently just out-racing Gerry here.
Yeah, 3 cards in hand, 3 cards in the Courier. It's a hit for 3. Michael's going to go down to 14, but that card's not really doing an enormous amount. We do have that Pia Nalar in hand for Gerry, though.
Does Gerry have a Sweltering Suns in hand? Does he have that in his deck?
Let's see. A Sweltering Suns, I think he does have it in the sideboard.
Okay, so if he does have one in hand, it would be pretty great here.
How do you feel about that card against a deck? I'm a little bit just curious about its kind of interaction against a deck that's trying to make 4/4s. It's really good in that early part, but I guess that cycle really offers a lot for it to be able to stay relevant.
The cycle gives you a little bit of that versatility, but on top of that, all of Michael's creatures do die to the Sweltering Suns unless Michael is able to kind of get that God Pharaoh's Gift on the battlefield. But Gerry does have a lot of ways to interact with that. Of course, he's got those braids.
Mm-hmm.
So it is a reasonable thing, especially if you're on the draw, where it's more likely that Michael can flood the board.
Also has some copies of Unlicensed Disintegration. So it's the Warkite Marauder, it's a Whirler Virtuoso, a Thopter, and a Beaumont Courier. It's time to turn them sideways. We've got 2 3s, 2 1s. Gonna make that Thopter into just a 0-1.
Yeah, so that way the Warkite Marauder and Michael's Thopter can attack safely through the Thopter that the PNLR created.
And it's going to be a Walking Ballista that follows it up.
So this is a lot of pressure on the board. Gerry was very patient last turn. I think he had that Sweltering Suns in hand, and he's going to get rewarded here because Michael did put another creature onto the battlefield here.
Yep, all of these creatures will die. Michael does not have the red mana to recycle this Courier as well, which could be a big consideration as he's running low on those cards in hand, and those 3 are going to remain a mystery.
Yeah, it's at this point, I think you just have to go for the Sweltering Suns. I don't think you can afford to wait too much longer. Also, keep in mind, with playing the Sweltering Suns this turn, if he casts it, he will have the ability to get that Scrap Heap Scrounger back onto the battlefield at end of turn, as he played the PNLR in the previous turn.
That's true.
All right, you got to go for it now, right? Okay.
2 extra mana. So I think Gerry's going to be untapping with his next turn with a Scrap Heap Scrounger ready to get into the red zone. Yeah. And right now it's on Michael to salvage something out of what's left in this hand and what's on top of the library.
Right. Something like a Hazoret, for example, would be nice.
That's a Champion of Wits. Well, if anything, it's going to fix your hand.
Yeah, definitely. And how many creatures are we looking at in the graveyard here? There's a God Pharaoh's Gift, which I don't think this deck ever looks to actually hardcast. Getting to 7 seems difficult here.
And it's another one of these Warkite Marauders. We do have a Minister of Inquiries. We've got that Warkite. I think we're at, I believe we're at least 4 of those cards in the graveyard right now.
Yeah, I see a Minister, a Warkite Marauder. It looks like 5 creatures in the yard currently with the Ballista. So Michael just needs one more in his graveyard, but he also needs a gate to the afterlife to actually be able to, of course, search out that God Pharaoh's Gift. One of the worst draws in the deck for Michael right now would be to draw God Pharaoh's Gift, as he already put one into his graveyard, and he's only playing 2 in his main deck.
No. At that point, you're just hoping to draw enough lands.
Right. That is your game plan kind of shifts into trying to do that.
Yeah, now earlier we did see that this blue-red deck is capable of kind of this alternative game plan. Actually, we watched it win with no God Pharaoh's Gift. It just went turn 1 play. I think it was a Beaumont Courier into a Warkite Marauder into Combat Celebrant, Combat Celebrant.
And I think this is kind of what it takes. This is what we've seen from a lot of these successful quote-unquote like kind of combo decks, creature combo decks. The most successful versions of these decks are decks where all your creatures are just kind of good, and you can just win that way, just through normal creature combat. And that's kind of how Michael built it. It kind of looks like a janky blue-red aggro deck, but then it just has this kind of alternate win condition, which gives you a little bit of inevitability. Yeah,
and we see the Hazoret and that Scrap Heap Scrounger attack on in. The Champion of Wits falls to the graveyard, getting in front of that Hazoret. That might put us at the realm. We've got 3 mana. We've got 2 for the activation. Gate to the Afterlife is an option, but it doesn't look like Michael's got it right yet.
Okay. Oh, and we got that combination again. A Warkite Marauder into the Fanatical Firebrand. Wow.
When's the last time you got to have a Fanatical Firebrand kill 2 Hazarets in a match?
It is insane. And also, you're playing against a black-red deck. They have plenty of removal for Warkite Marauder. Just Gerry hasn't found too many.
No, and we saw him use that Sweltering Suns. Another one followed it up immediately. Got a massive amount of value, and Michael's just back at it. So it's another Scrap Heap Scrounger.
Okay, we got a race.
And Michael's at 6. Count up that power on the right side of the battlefield. It lines up pretty nicely, but there's no blocking for Gerry. And there's the Hazoret.
That's a Hazoret.
That looks like it might have been a Glintnest Crane as well. It was, but that's going to get discarded. And I think Michael might be relying on just hopes for the next turn. An attack in for 2 maybe, and then rely on the Hazoret next turn?
Yeah, so he can still choose to attack with a Warkite Marauder, but it looks like he's going to play it a little safer here, just keep his creatures back as blockers.
Oh, that's a Chandra.
Oh, Gerry's hand is Gerry just has lethal here. Gerry can play a Chandra, minus it to get one of the creatures off the board, and I believe that last card is an Abrade.
That looked like an Abrade to me. This looks like it might be Gerry moving on. Now, we do see him thinking about it a little bit, might be considering just that 2 open mana.
Yeah. Yeah, but, I mean, Michael, I guess, could have an instant speed removal spell, but it would still just be really hard for me not to just try to get both creatures out of the way and then just attack for lethal with the Scrap Heap Scrounger. Here we go.
And there it is. That should be enough. There's the handshake, and Gerry takes it down. Hazoret and Abrade at the finish to close it out. We see the red deck take it down.
Yeah. Some really just kind of awesome games, right? I mean, we got to see Warkite Marauder just do its thing. Really overperformed. I mean, you would think when you're playing against a black-red deck with Fanatical Firebrands of its own, Walking Ballistas, just all kinds of removal spells, it's probably not going to do anything, but he really did get to live the dream with that Marauder.
Absolutely. Attacking in with those ones the couple of times, was able to use I think it was able to use a Walking Ballista previous to, and even using that one for 0 mana to recycle it when he had that Gate to the Afterlife.
Yeah, super heads-up play, but of course, he's had a lot of experience playing this deck, and it really showed.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So, we're going to have more action coming up in round 13 coming up here at GP Seattle. We'll have more Magic coming your way, and we'll see you then.